that the weather is less than perfect, so it means a lot that folks are out here to our press conference. Also, I thought I had a few minutes to be late because I figured folks might be a little late, but it turns out I'm the one late, so thanks for being here, not only in general, but on time. So with that, we're originally planning to be outside today to show off really our Kansas Wildlife Exhibit Center this morning with Todd and his animal ambassadors, but just looking outside, I think it's easy to tell it's a little bit too cold for us to be doing that. So I do want to give a special shout out to our public works crews working outside today and yesterday and the night before, doing all they can to make sure our streets are clean and are safe to drive on. But if you can, please stay home if possible. And if you have to go out, please make it short. We don't want folks to put themselves in a dangerous situation. Also, our officers have been out there helping people who have spun off the side of the road. Really, our goal is to keep Wichita as safe as possible, and just to remind folks that it is icy out there. It is pretty bad, so please take precautions when you do go out, and give yourself enough time to really kind of crawl to your destination so that you're not putting yourself in a dangerous spot by going too fast. So with that, we're going to talk, although we couldn't be out to the Kansas Wildlife Exhibit, we did decide to bring a little bit of the exhibit to you all. So we want to make sure that Todd has an opportunity to talk about the exhibit at the Kansas Wildlife Exhibit Center. He is the caretaker in the Riverside Park. Recently, Todd acquired a new star for the exhibit, a golden eagle, who comes to us after suffering an accident that left him unable to fly, and I really hope that's not him. Today, Todd is here to tell us more and reveal the name of our new feathered friend. So with that, Todd. And also, Megan, I did have a request to have a falcon, and were we able to make that happen? No? Maybe next time. Todd, maybe you can help me out with that, and we can do some falcon hunting.
Thank you. My name is Todd Volkman. I'm the exhibit caretaker at the Kansas Wildlife Exhibit, and this is a placeholder for a much livelier version that is currently there. We've had a male golden eagle there for over a week now. He's been a popular attraction, and like many of the animals at the exhibit, he's there there's kind of a sad story behind him. He was struck by a semi. Damaged his left wing. They attempted surgery and rehabilitation because ideally any animal that's hurt, you can release them, but that's not always the case, and that's how a lot of the animals ended up at the Kansas Wildlife Exhibit. They're also used for education purposes in partnership with the Great Plains Nature Center. That's also where this eagle does reside. He looks over the habitat hall there. But that includes some of the animals at the wildlife exhibit. They would go out to programs and events in the area. If you're not familiar with the exhibit, there is a feeding time every day. That's the best chance to see as much as possible. Some popular attractions are now the golden eagle, Rufus the bobcat, Chopper the beaver, and Pokey the possum, in addition to quite a few other animals. And on days like today, it still takes place, but it's a lot easier to follow us on social media. You can just look at some of our nice videos and photos, and that's Kansas Wildlife Exhibit if you want to follow it. Recently, we did conduct a poll. First, we got some name suggestions, and there were a lot of wonderful name suggestions, and we narrowed it down to 5. And the poll was between Midas, Goldie, Keeper, Diesel, and Aguila. And it was a close race. We had almost a couple hundred votes, and our new golden eagle, he's a keeper. I really like this name. We are in the shadow of the Keeper of the Plains. People can visit the Golden Eagle, and I can mention the Keeper just right across the bridge. And yeah, he's definitely a keeper. Again, he's there all the time, but try to catch him at feeding time if you can. Thanks.
Thanks, Todd. So now we got 2 keepers. All right, let's make sure we added less confusion to that, but very good, and looking forward to getting out there. Hopefully, it's Kansas. Maybe we'll just wait a few hours until it's 80 degrees out, and we probably go out there next time and be able to see the animals up close and in person. But thank you for all you do. Next, we're going to talk about city art. So since it's cold outside, it may be a few days before you want to visit our wildlife exhibit. But City Arts has a great opportunity for some indoor fun. The 11th annual Art That Touches Your Heart exhibit returns to City Arts until February 25th. So the exhibit features work by 19 artists about the contemporary African-American experience. Participating artists come from all over the county. The annual exhibit is curated by the Art That Touches Your Heart Foundation in order to provide inspiration and support to African-American art students. 2022 marks the second year the exhibit has been on view at City Arts. City Art galleries are free and open to the public during business hours. More information can be found at wichita.gov/City Arts. This is a great opportunity to support our African American artists in honor of Black History Month, so please be sure to check it out. With that, we also have some more information from Sean about indoor fun that folks can participate in from the Wichita Public Library's Big Read. So here to tell us more about the Big Read is Sean Jones, who I believe is reading a full book to us. Is that correct?
That is correct. All right, so we are gearing up for the 14th Big Read here in Wichita. We will start that on Saturday, February 12th at 2:30 p.m. through a Facebook Live kickoff party on the Big Read Wichita and the Wichita Public Library Facebook pages. This year's book is The House on Mango Street by Sandra Cisneros. It tells the story of Esperanza Cordero, a young Latina girl growing up in Chicago, inventing for herself who and what she will become. The story of Esperanza's childhood is told through a series of heartbreaking and joyous vignettes and discusses childhood and self-discovery. This book is about 100 pages. It's a very quick read, and it's also one of the best books I've ever read. I didn't write it. So I highly encourage people to participate in the Big Read this year. So at the kickoff, we'll have art and cultural programming. Residents should watch the virtual kickoff party to see where they can get a free copy of the book from 5 to 6:30 p.m. later that evening. We'll do a drive-through book pickup at that time. And during the Big Read, library and area partners will host programming related to the themes, plot, setting, and characters of the book. Some of our featured events include a keynote featuring Kansas Poet Laureate Huascar Medina on March 13th at the Advanced Learning Library. We're partnering with Mama Film to do a virtual film festival featuring films about Mexican-American culture the weekend of March 5th. And we're also having a keynote with author Sarah Smarsh, who's best known for her book Heartland, on May 5th at the Advanced Learning Library. The National Endowment for the Arts and Arts Midwest granted the library a $20,000 grant to host this year's Big Read. Like I said, this is the 14th year the library and community partners have presented this program in Wichita, and the Big Read aims to bring together schools, libraries, cultural organizations, businesses, and book clubs to celebrate literacy and learning through a common book. And more information can be found at bigreadwichita.org.
All right, thanks, Sean. So we can open up to questions. We also have staff here who can talk about the roads if anybody wants to jump in any details about that. Luckily, Ben was able to join us, so he's someone who can tell you the actual makeup of the salt we use depending on what type of snow we have. So he's the guy that I'll turn to if some of these questions get a little more technical. But with that, let's open up to questions really about anything. Yes, sir.
How are you doing this morning, Mayor?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Good, good. Jason with Wichita TV7. Just have a quick question about you. At the beginning of the year, I believe the city's NDO that come into effect this year.
That's correct.
I had a question that actually came from a few people in regards to the NDO. How does the NDO work towards individual employees here in town? Because we've been getting a lot of people talking about changing their careers and things at the beginning of the year. Some people are having some issues with COVID and things of that nature that are leaving the workplace. Some people are facing retaliations on the job. Are those things covered in the NDO, or does that still need to go to a state level?
So the NDO, the local level non-discriminatory ordinance, is a path towards finding resolution for folks who experience discrimination here in our community without having to go through the state level process. Ours is heavily focused on mediation, and it is exercised through our city court. Now, for someone to start the process, they would have to show that have a credible incident of discrimination, but the discrimination definition is the same as a discrimination at the state and federal level as well. So it's not like it would be based on those categories in which we determine.
You're just down on them.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess some people who think they're being discriminated against, but they're not. They're just being asked to leave because of being loud. I got some folks who ask about the NDO because they were forced to wear a mask inside a private business that requires masks. That doesn't fall under the definition of discrimination, for example.
That someone did hit our newsroom about it, Wichita TV 7. They were asking about the mask. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Oh, of course, and that's maybe we got to do a better job talking about this. But discrimination is really when people face a disadvantage based on stuff that they can't help, and so you get some who think they're being discriminated against based off a private mask policy, let's say, and that doesn't fall under this definition. So, other questions?
And this might be for Public Works, but how, as far as the roads, how are we looking compared to yesterday? And then, is there any worry about snow potentially melting today and refreezing overnight, causing conditions to worsen or just kind of elongate through tomorrow?
We'll go ahead and pass it over to Ben, who, like I said, is an expert in this field.
Thank you. Ben Nelson, BEN, NELSON, Interim Assistant Director, Wichita Public Works and Utilities. We always, to the latter of your two questions, we always have concerns about any liquid precipitation refreezing overnight. Obviously, temperatures dip lower overnight most of the time, plus there isn't nearly as much vehicular traffic to mechanically break up any sort of ice pack or anything. So any of the liquid that's overnight a lot of times refreezes. It's a particular concern in the normal trouble spots like intersections, hills, curves, any elevated surfaces. To your first question about whether we've seen any condition improvement overnight, we saw a slight condition improvement overnight. Yesterday we really first started getting snowfall around 11 to 1 a.m. From Tuesday going into Wednesday. That persisted really heavily through the morning on Wednesday, and then we still had some trace amounts and some flurries coming down late into the afternoon yesterday. Couple that with the fact that we had some extremely strong north winds. We were getting snow blowing all over the roadway even after it had stopped snowing late last night. So the storm really for us didn't end in terms of precipitation until late in the evening. So we were kind of battling that, plus the fact that the temperatures were, I think, as low as 4 degrees potentially overnight. So our salt and our normal road salt is not nearly as effective. We have a sodium chloride compound that loses about 90% of its effectiveness once it gets below 10 degrees. We supplement that with a more effective treatment, a type of salt that's a calcium chloride mix. That we're able to supplement at these lower temperatures. So we're still able to get some level of melting, but it's always a lot slower when it's at 10 degrees or 4 degrees or 6 degrees. So we didn't obviously see the improvement overnight that we sometimes see when we have higher temperatures. What's looking good for us over the next, I would say, probably 24 hours is that the sun has come out. The winds have died down, so we're not getting big snow drifts, particularly on the east-west streets. That's where we've had some challenges with drifting snow blowing in from adjacent properties, mounting up 2 feet, for example, on some of the side of the roadways. So the sun's out, the winds have died down, and the precipitation has ended. And then on top of that, obviously we've got overnight cold temperatures, so we will see some refreezing, and people should be cautious when they drive in the morning. But throughout the day tomorrow, I believe we're going to have a sunny day, no clouds, hopefully, and temperatures warming up to a couple of degrees of freezing. So we expect conditions to gradually and slowly get better throughout today. They're still not going to be good. We had a winter storm come through. It lasted a long time. Temperatures have not been good. So we're going to have some snowpack through the rest of the day. People should be cautious tomorrow when they first drive in the morning, but we're hopeful the conditions should be vastly improved by the end of the day tomorrow.
You guys still have all your trucks out right now?
We do. We have 60 plow trucks that have a material salt and sand spreader on the back. Those have been plowing and applying the material treatment. Whenever we we got 6 inches of snow. Whenever we have usually more than about 2 inches of snow, we have to put the plows down on the roadway. That slows down how quickly they can make it through the network of the primary streets that we treat. But all 60 of our trucks have been deployed since 8 p.m. on Tuesday night.
How much, you mentioned the plows are out there. Is it so much, maybe you're not pushing as much snow as opposed to maybe just dropping the salt and sand mixture?
We're pushing snow, and when we have the plows down, it means that there's more friction with us, and we have to go slower to avoid causing pavement problems or hitting objects and things. So we go slower because the plows are down. But it's usually easier if we've got an inch and a half, and we can just drop salt and sand, and that usually takes care of it. But one of the challenges with this storm that we haven't had in recent storms was that really, really heavy wind, because we would plow off snow, and then we'd come back, hours later, and we'd have all snow back right on the street again, even though we'd only had trace amounts of snow coming from the sky. It's because it was blowing from all these adjacent properties back onto the roadway. So, the 6 inches that we received at Eisenhower Airport is a little bit deceiving because that's what fell down into one spot, but particularly the roadways, again, that go east-west, we had snow blowing with that heavy wind, just kept blowing and reblowing and reblowing back onto the street. This wasn't the wettest snow. It wasn't as dry as snow as we've had like last February when it was really, really cold. So because it wasn't so wet, it's more prone to blowing around than we sometimes get with some of our normal snow. I don't know the moisture profile of the snow, but it seemed a little drier than we normally get, and that helped it blow around quite a bit. But thankfully the winds are lower, and we should start seeing more progress soon.
Would you say that your east-west roads are probably more trouble right now than the north-south?
The right travel lanes on the east-west roads in particular are where it's getting worse. And it's really hit or miss. Some of the areas, it's fine, and then you'll see a 1, 2, or 3 foot mound of snow where, because of the profile of the road and the adjacent properties, it all just kind of piles into one area. So we're seeing it mostly on the east-west roads because of where the wind was coming in from.
How long will you think you have your trucks out?
We will have the trucks out until there's bare pavement. This is a guess, but I would imagine we will have them out through the daytime hours tomorrow. And a lot of the time, assuming that everything looks bare at that point, we're always really concerned about any overnight refreezing. Sometimes when that happens, when it looks like we're through got all the bare pavement, a lot of times we'll keep a contingent force on just to monitor any slick spots that could come up overnight that we didn't anticipate. So I'm guessing we'll have them going through the day tomorrow, and then maybe overnight having some contingent staff to be able to monitor any slick spots. But again, we'll have to make that call based on what we see tomorrow. Did you have a question?
Yes, sir. Just have a quick question.
Yes.
The other day we were out and we were seeing that, well, actually even this morning, there were a lot of cars that were stuck in the snow and trying to get out. I have one last question for you though on this here. There was a park and recreational tow truck the other day that was kind of helping a couple of people helping. Does the city have its own tow truck company, or?
So kind of to address one point and then answer your question, if I may. So a lot of, and I apologize because a lot of you have heard this probably 50 times now over the course of the last few years. Just as a reminder, the city trucks treat 1,500 lane miles of arterial streets. Those are the east, west, north, south primary streets. And then we move on to treat 300 lane miles of collectors and smaller, more lightly traveled collector streets, and then school routes. So we do 1,800 lane miles of streets. That leaves about 3,100 lane miles of streets that are the residential streets. We do not treat those. And so a lot of times, a lot of things I think we've seen where people have gotten stuck in snow, it's been on those side streets, the residential streets, where it's got 6 inches and then any sort of drifts. And that's really where people are getting stuck more so than the primary streets. There's obviously, it's happened on primary streets as well, but probably less so than the drifts and untreated roadways they're seeing on the neighborhood streets. To your question about whether the city has a towing service, the city does not have a tow. There are not city staff and city trucks that go and tow people when they get stuck. There are private wreckers, private tow services that people are usually calling for that. The city does have a towing truck that we use for our own vehicles when they get stuck, and that may have been, I don't know if that's what you saw. So, yeah.
But I had never really seen a tow truck, and they had the park and recreationals right on the side of it, so I was, just kind of.
Yeah, so we do have one tow truck that, like if a police vehicle gets disabled, for example, or a city vehicle is disabled for whatever reason, it can go and tow one of those vehicles. We actually have a larger tow truck for if it's a piece of heavy equipment like a fire truck, but that's exclusive usually for city use.
People are stuck like on like you said, on the residential roads, and pretty much they just have to call a private record.
Yes.
Thank you.
It seems like some of the roads are still snowpacked, kind of more than we normally see. I don't know if is that due to you guys have all your drivers? Do you know what the plan is and how long it may take to clear them off? And what is the percentage of what is clear?
So all of the streets have been treated. All of them have been plowed. We do not have a shortage of drivers. We're fully staffed. All 60 of our trucks have been operational, thankfully. The challenge with this storm has been the blowing snow coupled with very low temperatures. A lot of times when those things happen, what we see are these Arctic temperatures really are the biggest problem. I said earlier, it takes about 12 hours to get through the entire network when we're plowing the street. That obviously means we can't get to every street before traffic starts compacting down the snow that's coming down. So what'll happen is that snow gets compacted down, and then the salt that's on there, because it's 10 degrees or 5 degrees, it's not nearly as effective. There's no sunshine to help melt anything off, and so you get this real kind of light glazed snowpack that persists stubbornly, usually for 36, 48 hours until we can get to where temperatures are warming and there's more sunshine. So I think we're heading in that direction now, but it's the combination of the very low temperatures and the fact that snow kept blowing back onto the streets and it was compacting down, which is why the snowpack has persisted a little bit longer this time than what we normally get.
And so you guys plow first, and then you come back by with like sand or salt mix. But then once you lay that down, you can't plow it again. And then the cars pack it down, whatever you know.
Kind of. So we plow it, and then right behind. So the truck does both. So the plow's on the front, it plows, drops salt and sand, and then when we come back through, we plow it again, and we know we're pushing salt and sand off again, but it's getting reapplied immediately by that same truck. And we know we do that often enough, and we get more favorable weather. It usually passes within a couple days, where everything's a lot more closely back to normal.
So the problem this time is continued 2 days of really cold weather.
It's weather conditions.
Yeah.
Weather conditions,
Pretty warm the next day and it melts it.
Exactly. So, and the biggest challenge for us is obviously the thing that we have no control over, weather conditions, right? Like we can control our response. We can like we always do. We do absolutely everything in terms of the equipment and the manpower and the material that we have available, and we're always fully stocked and everything. But we're so much at the mercy of weather on these events, and so you can get a 6-inch snowfall that's immediately followed by sunshine within 6 hours. hours, everything looks normal. We actually had that same scenario play out last New Year's Day. We get 6 inches yesterday, and because we have this stubborn Arctic cold combined with all these winds blowing all the snow back onto the roadway, we get this light snowpack. So you can have 6 inches, but 6 inches in one storm is not the same as the other. We're kind of really at the mercy of what the weather conditions allow us to do. But I do want to assure everybody we have all resources have been applied to this, and we're doing the best we can with what we can control.
All right.
That's why we bring Ben down. We want to make sure we have someone who knows the moisture index of the snow. I didn't even know there was such thing, but glad you're here. We want the type of people who know that to answer your questions when it comes to snow. Again, the most important thing I think right now is just to let people know, give yourself twice the time it takes to get from point A to point B. If you have to go out at all, we're doing our best when it comes to the streets, but we really need folks to step up and be responsible when they're driving as well, so that we can just eliminate as many inconveniences or injuries as possible. So thanks for everyone who's doing that, and also thanks to our crew who's out there making sure that our streets are as safe and drivable as they can be. And really what I think is record-breaking temperatures. Megan, by the way, if you're not following our official social media, you should be. Something was posted where this storm is comparable to, I think, something in 1913.
It's, sorry, let me read verbatim. National Weather Service has reported that at the Eisenhower Airport, we received 5.9 inches of snow, breaking the previous February 2nd snowfall record of 5.2 inches set in 1913.
So 1913 was the last time in February, this time February, we had this amount of snow. So very unique, I think, storm, and we should take that into account as we make our plans for the day. All right, any other questions on anything at all? All right, thanks, guys. Look forward to seeing you next week. Call me if anything comes up between now and then.